Hi everyone and welcome to another channeled message reading. Now these messages for today have a very special subject, and it is all about our wounds and how to heal our wounds. And the reason why I have chosen this subject is not a coincidence, because tomorrow, around on Tuesday, Mars is going to meet Chiron in the sky. Now Mars is the activator, so whenever it touches a planet or a very important degree or any kind of symbolism in the sky, it activates it, so it brings it that much more into our awareness, and around that time when Mars activates it, it becomes a main theme of our everyday lives depending on what kind of aspect it is, how long it lasts for, etc. So, amongst many other very important karmic subjects, our wounds, where it is that we were wounded, our healing journeys are gonna be very, very important. Right now, Chiron, the wounded healer, which is the symbol of where our wounds are and maybe what nature our wounds are, but of course, that all depends on our own natal Chiron. But right now, Chiron is in the sign of Aries, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So it doesn't really matter where our own personal Chiron is, this is gonna impact us without exception, because Aries is our instincts, it is our genes, it is who we are, that we were born into this life. So Chiron in that part of the sky is definitely going to pull to the surface our wounds, where it is that we were hurt, where it is that we have, for example, psychological, emotional blockages that do not allow us to move forward or to embrace a much healthier lifestyle, a much healthier relations with the self, for example. And these kind of wounds, which have to do with Aries, are deeply, deeply rooted into us, into our instincts. So they are either wounds that we might have inherited from our ancestors, parents, grandparents, for example, because if they have lived through an extremely traumatic time, well, their trauma can be passed on to us in our genes. It is absolutely possible. Or it could be something that happened to us in this life when we were very young, and that might have left a massive impact on us. But of course, it doesn't even matter when it happened, how it happened, where it happened. If it wounded us and if it left a massive impact, well, this is the moment, the celestial, invitation, when the hurt is gonna be pulled to the surface. And even if we already healed it, even if we know exactly where we stand from, even if we worked through all of that, it will still pull up the memory so that we can spiritualize it even more and turn it into an even greater expression of wisdom, because Chiron is the wounded healer, so healing our own wounds makes us healers in the lives of others, even if it's just one single person in this life that you're gonna meet and share your own experiences, and that will heal that person. Well, that is still the symbolism of Chiron. You are still the Chiron in that person's life. So this channeled message evokes the wounds of certain people. There, you don't have to choose a specific card, because, for example, for some people, all of these messages can be true at the same time. So just listen to the guidance, take what resonates, discard the rest, and there's also guidance here. So it doesn't just pull up the wound and the main karmic theme right now, but it also tries to give you an advice on what to do, how to heal it, or how to process it. So the very first card is maybe the most significant. It is the Five of Coins reversed and the Five of Cups. And this goes out for a person who was extremely wounded in their childhoods. Now the Five of Cups can represent a very, very, very bad material situation. It can represent an illness, a physical limitation that you might have been born with, or it can represent a great social injustice where your family was very, very affected by, for example, social injustice. Society, other people in the community might have hurt you or might have been extremely unfair with you. But either way, the true wound is not exactly the event or the memory or the happening itself, because for some people, it could have been a very prolonged period of time, for example, years, tens of years, or maybe just a week, a day, an hour, but still whatever happened was really, really impactful for the psyche. But of course, this wound is more or less healed, so the psychological effects are no longer significant. You have found forgiveness, understanding, you have analyzed and went through your situation over and over again so many times in your life. So none of this is actually a mystery to you. You see it in a very, very, very clear manner. You might have even went to a psychologist, a therapist, and you might have studied everything in greater detail in an attempt to understand yourself, to fix your situation, to heal this wound. And rationally, so very many things. You know everything that you need to know. You know where you stand from. You know why, how, when. But there is still a side of this that you might not be aware of. So this situation, this trauma, this very deep wound might still be influencing you, and you might not even know it, because its influence is purely, and I say just purely, spiritual. At the time when it happened, and as I say again, it doesn't matter the period of time or when exactly it happened. What matters is that you were very young. Even if you were an adolescent, even if you were in your 20s, for example, it still counts very much, because you true-heartedly, from the depths of your soul, believe that somehow the divine power, or what the divine means for you personally, can turn around your situation. And you had a lot of hope. You had a lot of faith. You invested a lot of energy into this, into, trying your best to save the situation when it happened. So you weren't like a passive victim. You were fighting with everything that you had. You were very, very aware even when it happened. So it wasn't like you were just a simple victim and that's it. No, you were very conscious, you were very aware, and you tried everything in your power, even when it took place in your life, to help your situation, to help yourself. You called in divine help with all the power that you had back then. And you had a lot of power because you were a child, you were innocent, you were connected to the spirit in ways in which, as an adult, it would be almost impossible, even if you weren't like totally awake when you were a child. But still, you couldn't save your situation because it was karma. And it wasn't negative karma, don't get me wrong, it wasn't any punishment. It was just the lesson that you needed to learn. This is how basically life turned you into a healer, by giving you very deep wounds. And the person who you are right now understands this. You know the logic behind it. You know how the divine works. And you also know that you signed up for this. So there is absolutely no hard feelings or anything like that. But still, the disappointment, the experience of the disappointment, when the child who you were, when the pure spirit who you were, was let down, was left outside in the cold by the divine, a divine power which you trusted with the innocence of a child, basically. Now that left a massive spiritual trauma, and regardless of how very balanced, wise, enlightened, open-hearted, full of unconditional love and compassion you are today, the child inside of you is still disappointed. And it is that moment of disappointment, of spiritual disappointment, when the divine let that child down, when the divine turned its back at that child, even though if it was like a pattern, like a scheme, a divine plan that had to play out, well, none of that matters to the child. That child still mistrusts everything spiritual. And this is a massive dichotomy inside of you, because you're a very spiritual person. Your faith is stronger than anyone that you know in your life. For example, much stronger than a cleric, much stronger than a spiritualist guru that you see there on the internet. So you know exactly how powerful, how special you are, and yet, because of this massive disappointment that is really rooted deep inside your soul, so this is even outside your human self, this is actually the wound of your spirit. This is actually in your divine spark. Well, that is leaving still a massive karmic impact on you, because the disappointment and the pain of that child is blocking all the divine intervention. Like, think about it logically. By now, your life should be full of miracles. It should be full of the greatest joy, bliss, and happiness for everything that you endured and for who you become. And yet it isn't. It is just an empty place compared to how it should be, compared, how it should be, as through divine logic, as through you should have been compensated for everything that you endured. And the reason why it's not is because your inner child is, rebelling. It is blocking it out. It is saying, I don't want your help because when I needed it, you turned your back on me. And a child is still a child. It doesn't matter that the adult who you are right now understands, but your spirit doesn't even want to understand. Basically, I know what I'm about to say sounds very ridiculous and even laughable, but unless the spirit of the child who you are receives some kind of apology or a gesture of a big love and care from the divine, it's not gonna cooperate. And the sad part is, there isn't anything you can do, because it is the child who you are. Even if you're your own parent, it is still not enough to make that child snap out of the disappointment. And there is nothing the divine can do directly. So basically, you and the divine are cooperating and using the best of both of your abilities, wisdom, and understanding to heal your inner child. So basically, right now, the divine is reinventing itself through you to reach out to that child who doesn't want to cooperate whatsoever, who is rejecting all the love, care, attention, miracles, bliss, magic that the universe is sending your way. So if you're in a big blockage in your life right now, because this is a karmic moment when the universe should be there for you, well, know that it is doing everything it can, that it wants to shower you with all the blessings, all the power, all the love, everything, but that child who you were is still disappointed and it won't cooperate, and it has nothing to do with you. So don't blame yourself. You aren't stubborn. You are so open and appreciative, full of gratitude, love, joy, name it, whatever. But unless you find a way to go back inside of your memories and make the child snap out of it, things cannot progress in your life, because you're that powerful. The disappointment that you experienced, it is more powerful than anything in this world. It is more powerful than anything, any force, any spiritual grandmaster, any spirit, any god, any divine being that exists in this world. So basically, until the inner child gets the apology and accepts it, I'm not sure how your situation can work out and progress. So it is this that you have to focus on with all the power that you have. And it is possible. Just be inventive, be smart, be ingenious, be inspired, and know how to reach out to your inner child. If it is, buying yourself that toy that you could never afford when you were, for example, 5 or 7, then that is what you have to do, even if it's ridiculous. An adult buying themselves a Lego or a Barbie or whatever, but maybe this is the gesture that the child needs. So all this healing act is just a gesture, and as soon as you come up with the right gesture, as soon as you use your ingeniousness and find the appropriate means to apologize to that inner child, well, that will be the moment when the miracle is gonna enter your life. And as I said, the vortex that is there and is available to you, a vortex of prosperity, blessings, love, power, appreciation, name it, whatever you desire is there. But the inner child needs to let it enter your life. Because of course it is stubborn. Like, understand it. It is not actually working against you. It is just fighting for its own justice. Like, think about when you disappoint a child, well, chances are it doesn't matter how much you apologize afterward, because that child can still be upset at you for the rest of its life. Don't forget this, that you're dealing with a being so innocent as a child. So it's the innocence that you cannot actually combat. How can you? Because it's innocent, it is divine. It is basically as if the divine would have upset itself. So basically it has to work its own way out. There is not that much that you can do except that gesture. Be inventive, be ingenious, embody your most inspired self. Because when you come up with the most appropriate gesture of what the inner child needs to forgive, well, that will be the quick fix. And I mean quick fix as an instantaneous miracle that is gonna change your life profoundly. Now the second message is the Six of Swords and the Ace of Swords reversed. Now this is very, very simple. This isn't really a direct wound. You have been born a genius. Believe it or not, but your intellect is like super hardcore, and you are so smart that basically your mind has a life of its own, because very many things in this life and all throughout your past, your history, were simply limiting to your mind. So basically, in order to cope, in order not to drive you crazy, your mind might have separated itself a little bit from you. So your mind is full of mysteries, it's full of enigmas, it's full of the most elevated thoughts. It is like a divine chaos full of fertility. But the problem is, whenever it is way too strong, whenever it is out of control, you might have ADHD problems, or you might struggle focusing, you might struggle concentrating, you might actually struggle, controlling your mind. And whenever you have to learn something on command, as in it's not really a choice, you just have to do it, for example, for your job, for school, for etc., your mind makes that very, very hard to do because it just won't concentrate. Mind learns what it wants to, and when it wants to, you learn it in an instant. For example, you don't even have to read a paragraph all to the end. The first sentence, or from the first few words, you already know exactly where the author's logic is going. You're that smart. So your mind is almost telepathic. So when it's out of control, it really makes your life very difficult. You might have problems sleeping, anxiety, panic attacks, overthinking, but your kind of overthinking is like multi-dimensional. You know, 1 second you might actually be worried, as in a normal overthinking of what you're gonna do tomorrow or how you're gonna solve this and that situation, and in the next moment you might be already, navigating the cosmos and thinking about how pulsars and neutrino stars work. So your mind is that powerful and that sharp. And for you guys, this isn't really a wound. You just need to find coping mechanisms, maybe meditation, breath work, listening to a specific kind of music with a certain hertz or megahertz or whatever. Or you might have to do a lot of physical exercise, or travel, or go in nature, go ride your bike, take very long walks. Because, when your mind is put on autopilot, it is actually leaving you in peace, in silence. It is much more cooperative. So for you guys, all you need to do is find techniques, coping skills on how to soothe and calm your mind. Give it a little bit of pleasure. Give it a little bit of fun activities, and then it will be cooperative. And then it will allow you to tap into your true ingenious, into its higher potential, into its highest cerebral activities. So once you learn how to discipline your mind, well, your life is gonna be extremely different, very harmonious, because once you can use your intellect to its full capacity, to your greatest good, well, imagine all the things that you can accomplish. But of course, you need a lot of patience for this. You need to be very, very patient with yourself. Now, moving on, we have the Five of Swords and the Star. Now, this is also very straightforward, because this isn't like a deeply rooted trauma or a pain whatsoever, but actually, it is your inner warrior. So it completes the symbolism of Mars in Aries very, very nicely. Especially that your inner warrior is a warrior of compassion. You are not someone who gets into conflict. You're not someone extremely willful. You don't really care about difference in opinions. You already found the wisdom to know that it's much better to accept people the way they are. Life, it's much easier if there isn't your way or the highway. So basically, you've worked all through these issues, which might have so much to do with your impulsivity, maybe anger issues, maybe, the inner volcano, your true warrior spirit lashing out at times when you're greatly provoked and angered. But as I said, you already worked this, so none of these are really a problem, except when your warrior is compassionate. Because, they have a saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. When someone is in trouble, when someone requires your help, well, you tend to overdo it greatly. You either not just help, but simply solve the situation instead of that person altogether. So basically, you can make a lot of people in your life very, very lazy. Because, as I said earlier, you don't just help, you do everything in their places. Or there are certain times when intervening or helping is unwise, because if it's a karmic challenge in the life of a person, well, then it's all about them solving the situation and not another person. So for you guys, you're still learning how to discipline the compassionate warrior inside of yourselves. There has to be a limit of how much you help, when you help, and how many times you help. Because if you just offer yourself on a silver plate unconditionally, when some people don't have measure, they don't have shame, they will come to you and call you up each and every second when they need help, instead of doing it on their own. So this is the big lesson that you have to work with: how to stop your compassionate inner warrior from doing way too much. Even the warrior of compassion needs to know its place, and it actually needs to know that sometimes severity and turning your back is the right course of action. Because when you have to teach someone to be self-sufficient, well, you don't just go there and do everything in their place, because that is a massive step back instead of being a step forward. Now next we have the Sun reversed and the Four of Swords, and this isn't really a trauma or a true wound, but it's rather a blockage, because the Sun reversed has to do with your creativity, with your skills, with your talents, with everything that is inside of you, and for some people even your identity. And this blockage is that each and every time when you go within yourself, well, you find there an infinite reservoir of inspiration, art, talent, vision, fantasy, dreams, beauty, wisdom. I mean, everything that you could possibly want and imagine, and it is inside of you. Your thoughts, your feelings, everything is so very creative, so very productive, so very inspirational. But when you have to express it in a material or human way, well, that is when you meet blockages. That is when you have, certain problems, because you might fear that you don't meet the standards of either society, an industry. You might compare yourself with other people, but this is exactly why the Sun card is reversed. For you, the solution is very, very simple. You are a unique creator, so why even compare yourself to other people? Why even have standards? Because, chaos can be extremely productive and fertile. So all you need to do is, this is just an example, if you're a painter, an artist who wants to paint, and you simply cannot express your mental image, you cannot put it on the canvas as it is in your head, well, just take the paintbrush and just allow your instinct to create whatever it can create. And if the final result doesn't meet your mental image, well, it's no problem at all, because you have to embrace the beauty of the distinctiveness of the creation. Because think about it, when a parent wants to have a child, of course it will have a basic image in its head or heart or whatever of how they would like their child to be. Of course they're going to fantasize about their parenting years, the time they are going to spend with their child, and the big moments in their child's lives and how they're gonna be there. But after the child is born, of course it is a totally different experience. Of course some things are not gonna be the way they envisaged it. But it is no problem at all, because you're still a parent, your child is still there, you still have to be there in every single moment of their lives. So it's absolutely a wonderful experience, even if your expectations weren't met. Sometimes real life is way more magical, beautiful, adventurous that you would have inside of yourself as in your expectations or your mental image of this. So just allow your creative energies to flow out freely, without any comparison, without any standards. Just be free. Just set your creativity free and embrace the end result, no matter how it is. And that is gonna be a big solution to your problems, Because every time you want to create and you feel a massive inspiration, well, when you try to think of the ways on how to, make it material, create it, record it, or whatever, you immediately enter procrastination. And the solution is so simple: just skip the procrastination. Whenever your artistic sense or creative sense is tingling, just go and do it. Don't even think about it. Allow chaos to take over you. Allow your body or your mind, your voice, or whatever you create with to just do its thing instinctually. And that's all that you need to do. It doesn't matter if the rest of the artistic world or the industry or other people do it totally differently. Just have the bravery, the courage to allow yourself to create freely, and that will be a massive help of your situation. Now for other people, especially females, because I'm getting a female energy here, is the Queen of Wands and the Two of Cups. Now this is also very straightforward, because this isn't a trauma, this is more like a fear or a misconception of yourself, because you're a very, very passionate, fiery lady. You know what you want, you know who you are, you know that you have a very, very strong will, you know that you're extremely ambitious, you have a very, very strong personality, and you're not afraid to show who you are, you're not afraid to speak your opinions, you're not afraid to love, you're not afraid to be vulnerable, but neither are you afraid of being very, very strong. And you also have like a warrior quality. You are someone who usually stands up for the weaker people. You are someone who is there for others when they have to fight their battles in life. But this also has a downside, because naturally you are a little bit too much for males in your life. And you might have had previous relationships when your strong personality, your strong self-sufficiency and your independence, your strong self-respect was a little bit too much for your partner, and this might have repeated in patterns more than once in your life. So of course it has left you with an impression that maybe you're a little bit too much for others, and this took away your hopes of having a loving relationship. But this is where your solution is very simple. Who you seek, according to the principles of quantum physics, quantum entanglement, also seeks you. So yes, it is absolutely true that you might be way too much for the average male, but consider that there might be someone out there in the world who needs you to be exactly who you are, who needs you to be as impulsive, as strong, as fiery, as passionate, as a living volcano as you truly are. Maybe for someone out there, this is the dream woman, this is only what they seek in life and nothing else. So why even limit yourself? Why even consider that you're too much? Don't let this turn into a fear or a shyness or having to hold yourself back. If you are too strong for some males, well, that's absolutely fine. Let them run as fast as they can, because the faster they run away from you, that leaves place for that man who is seeking you to enter your life. So don't despair. Be proud of who you are. Don't even consider limiting yourself. If you're too much, well, that is actually a good sign and not a bad sign. And finally, we get to the Six of Pentacles with the Moon reversed. Now these cards and this message is rather similar to the previous one with the Queen of Wands, but this goes for everyone, not just for females. And the problem here is the Six of Pentacles, it is your soul level generosity. And this doesn't mean material generosity, but of course it includes it. This is that you are a person who can love another being, who can love another soul with everything that they have. There is no sacrifice, there is no act of compassion, act of generosity, act of help that you wouldn't be willing to make for someone who you love. And we're not even talking about romantic love here, we're just talking about love. It doesn't even have to be a person, it can be an activity, a hobby, something that you do, an animal, a philosophy, a principle. It can be absolutely anything. The essence is that you're so giving, you're so devoted, you're so loyal, you have no limit. And this is how your soul is. You have absolutely no control over this. This is who you are. But naturally, many times in your life, this got you into trouble. This attracted all the bad people in your life. This made you be a victim in many stages of your personal evolution, where either people, a job, a company, a lover, a partner used you, or intoxicated you, or manipulated you, or took advantage of your generosity, of your kindness. So of course right now you have learned all these lessons of when to withdraw, when to limit your generosity, when not to show who you are to others, especially when you suspect, because you're very, very empathic. So it's not easy to fool you. You know who someone is just by looking in their eyes. So you had to learn to not show who you are, to hide yourself when dealing with a potentially dangerous person. But the problem is, you might have learned all the lessons a little bit too intensely. They might have left a very bitter taste in your soul. So of course you're overprotecting yourself right now. And it is limiting you. You're full of fears, really. Because these are subconscious fears. You're afraid of opening up. You're afraid of showing yourself. You're afraid of showing who you are. You're afraid of speaking your truth. But this isn't like, you're not afraid of anyone specific. Neither are you afraid that you're gonna attract a negative person into your life. Neither are you afraid of being used. But better said, you just don't want the whole experience to be relived once again. You don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past because it would take so much energy. So basically you just don't want to expand that energy. It is not like a very powerful fear, but it's still enough to stop you in your tracks. And the message for you guys, well, it is really, really beautiful because the spirit is telling you, on one hand, it is absolutely okay, normal, and necessary to protect yourself and have limits and to hide when it is the case. But don't be too afraid. Don't be afraid of showing who you are, because you're no longer that fragile and vulnerable person who you were. You're actually so very powerful that you have no idea. So basically, it doesn't matter who you attract in your life right now, because the way you are, the way your compassionate spirit shines out through you, this time around, whoever enters your life, regardless of what their intention is, regardless of what they embody, what they represent, even if they would be a toxic narcissist, you would transform them. You would bring out their sense of compassion. You would actually awaken the spirit inside of them. So basically, don't be afraid anymore. You have no reason to be afraid anymore, because your compassion is so very strong. Your heart is already so pure and divine that you are a force of change in the lives of everyone. So you're basically invulnerable. Your purity has reached such high frequencies that anyone that might enter in your life, you would change them. You would make them be inoffensive. You would bring out their very, very best self. You would spark up their humanity. You would just, how should I even say it? intoxicate their own spirit with compassion and everything that you represent, you're way too strong for anyone right now. So why even fear? So as long as you hold discipline and balance in your life, not to overdo it, not to, make a potential victim out of yourself. Well, if you embody this balance, there is absolutely no reason to fear anything or anyone, because basically your frequency is so intense right now that anyone who would enter your life, even if it would be an enemy, you would just pacify them. They cannot hurt you anymore. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this guidance was useful. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Until next time, bye for now. And just a quick reminder, tomorrow we're going to have a special video detailing the astrological representation of Chiron, Mars meeting Chiron in Aries, and also the other very influential and karmic planetary aspects that are playing out right now. This is a period like no other that we could have experienced in this lifetime. So basically, every day will be a new episode of the so called Twilight Zone. Thank you again, and bye for now.